What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, and today is the day. The 2025 NFL Draft is just 4 hours from kickoff. We have made it. Months and months and months of back and forth between who are the Pittsburgh Steelers going to draft? Is Aaron Rodgers going to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers and change their draft plans? Now, Shedeur Sanders falling to the Pittsburgh Steelers, is that real? Is it not real? Do you circle back to defensive tackle, which is where this conversation started months ago? Does a sleeper make his way into the 21st pick in the NFL draft? How much pull does Mike Tomlin have? What are the last minute changes that the Pittsburgh Steelers are preparing for? Where is the NFL as a whole? We have gone months of debating, gathering information, processing that information, deciding what information is useless and what information is pretty strong and that we should latch onto. In the process, we have gone into denial, acceptance, denial. Once again, we have followed a quarterback that has gone dark just before the NFL draft, and somehow Deion Sanders and his kid might end up in the city of Pittsburgh tonight. We're diving into everything the Pittsburgh Steelers have to offer in the next 4 hours, where they are headed with the 21st pick in the 2025 NFL draft and beyond. And as we do every single day, I'm going to get all the questions that you guys have and I'm going to answer them so that we are full of knowledge. Everybody knows exactly what to expect heading into tonight when Roger Goodell takes the stage in Green Bay, gets booed, and Cam Ward is announced as the first pick in the 2025 NFL draft. As always, make sure to subscribe to me on YouTube, youtube.com/allsteelerstalk. Check me out anywhere you get your audio podcast. Go hit those audio downloads. I can't tell you how grateful I am for everybody who does. That is a massive piece of what I'm trying to do this year, is to hit that top 10 on Apple at the end of the year. It's a big goal of mine, and I'm hoping to accomplish it. And then, as always, especially tonight, you could find all of my work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Shout out our super chatters. Shout out our members. Let's dive into it. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 4 hours, 3 hours, and 56 minutes away from the Tennessee Titans taking the stage, announcing Cam Ward as the first pick in the 2025 NFL draft, which begins a roller coaster ride that will last roughly 3 to 4 hours. And somewhere near the end of it, the Pittsburgh Steelers will make a selection. We're diving into the quarterback situation and where the Pittsburgh Steelers stand. Their first round options, who has crawled their way into the favorite spot, who has fallen out of the favorite spot. And to be honest with you, there are some last minute sleepers. I have spent the last 24 hours or so communicating with as many people as humanly possible, sending as many texts and making as many phone calls as I could possibly make in that time process. You could ask my wife last night. She went to bed at about 10:15. I was laying next to her. We were watching I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson, and my phone starts going off. I crawled into bed at about 1:15 in the morning. That's when things were about finished with my conversations after things just started rolling. And I am so pumped to bring everything I have to you guys today. Let's start with the position everybody wants to talk about. Everybody has their eyes on. I had a friend text me today and said, man, I hope it's Shedeur. And it just confirmed everything that I think a bunch of people are thinking right now within the fan base. And that is, the Pittsburgh Steelers need a quarterback. There is no position on the field more important than a quarterback. I completely agree. Doesn't matter if you want a defensive tackle. Doesn't matter if defensive tackles are better or if running backs are better or if wide receivers are better. The Pittsburgh Steelers do not have a starting quarterback. They need a starting quarterback. And until they have one, their roster is not complete and they are not a serious contender in 2025. Not that a rookie quarterback makes them one this season, but I hear you. I hear everybody who says it, and it is a loud, loud chant from the fan base to go and get a quarterback. All right. Well, let's talk about the favorites, and let's talk about where quarterbacks are going to fall in this draft. After months of talking about all over the place, Shedeur Sanders is the biggest question mark in the NFL draft and remains the biggest question mark in the NFL draft. And I have somewhat bad news for anybody sitting around hoping that I'm about to say that he's going to fall to 21 and that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be licking their chops saying, let's go. That is our guy. Go get our next franchise quarterback. There are two issues here. The first one, I would not rule out the New York Giants. I would not rule out the New York Giants at all. Do I think that it's more likely than not that they select Shedeur Sanders? No. Do I think it's just as likely that they select Shedeur Sanders over Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter or whoever's sitting there at 3? Absolutely. I have spoken to a number of people who have just continued to point out that the New York Giants have interest in Shedeur. And yes, they have made their efforts to disguise that interest later in this draft process, but it came after months of not hiding that interest at all. They sent 13 people to his pro day. They met with him at the NFL Combine. They met with him at the Shrine Bowl. They made another trip to Colorado for a private workout. They have done everything in their power to know exactly who Shedeur Sanders is and what they could be getting at 3. And everybody says trade back up, trade back up, trade back up. Teams are not always looking at it that way. Sometimes they're thinking, if that's our guy, why would we wait? Why would we make things complicated if we believe that that is our next franchise quarterback and we're going to get him? I would not, by any means, rule out the New York Giants at number 3 taking Shedeur Sanders. That is problem 1. Problem 2 is that if it's not the New York Giants at 3, there's some lingering noise around the NFL, a lot of lingering noise around the NFL, that the Denver Broncos are looking to make a move. And that move is get out of Dodge, trade back, and let somebody who wants Shedeur Sanders come get him at 20, 1 pick ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because that is, everybody talks Steelers trading back, and the Steelers should move back. And if the Steelers are getting a defensive tackle, they should move backwards because it makes more sense to go get him later than at 21, get your draft pick back in the second round for DK Metcalf. I hear it all. I get it all. It takes 2 to tango. You need that other team that wants to trade back or trade up for you to trade back. The Steelers might not have that team. Who will have that team is the Denver Broncos, because teams will be looking at it and saying the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to take Shedeur Sanders or they're going to take Jackson Dart. Let's go ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers and trade with the Denver Broncos and go get our quarterback. That is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing it on many fronts. And I'm not saying it's a guarantee. It's probably nowhere close to a guarantee. It's probably not even likely. But right now there are noise. And I expect this NFL draft, the theme of this draft is unknown. That is what I have been told so many times. Nobody has any idea how this thing is going to shape out, because it's been since 2014 since we have gone into an NFL draft without a first round trade prior to draft night. That's how 11 years we have gone without this being here where we are right now. And nobody knows how it's going to navigate. And they're just hopefully sitting around waiting for something to happen. That is issue number 2. Now, would the Pittsburgh Steelers take Shedeur Sanders? That's the biggest question of them all. If he's here at 21, what would it take for the Pittsburgh Steelers to draft Shedeur Sanders? I think I have a pretty good idea of what it would take. And this is not me guessing. This is collecting information, collecting the data, kind of tossing it out to you guys to say, okay, this is where the Steelers stand heading into draft night when it comes to Shedeur Sanders and the quarterback position. It's fairly simple. Their eyes have not moved from certain players throughout this draft process at all. They still view guys ahead of Shedeur Sanders, no matter what position they are looking at, and no matter what position Shedeur Sanders plays. They believe that the talent of Shedeur Sanders does not match the talent of others in this draft, and because of that, they need to stick the course for a superstar instead of a placement player. I'm not saying that I agree or disagree. I'm just saying what is out there and what the belief is in Pittsburgh, that the Steelers need certain guys to not be on the board for them to let Shedeur Sanders, or to make Shedeur Sanders their pick. Shedeur will not be number one on their board no matter what. If there are names out there, and we'll dive into those names here in a second, but if any of them are on the board, the Steelers are going to pick somebody else above a quarterback, and that has been the lingering belief throughout this draft process, and it remains it today. That part hasn't changed. The Steelers fully anticipate getting somebody that they believe can be here for 8 to 10 years, who could be a quality player at a number of positions, whether that's defensive tackle, running back, or wide receiver. And I wouldn't rule out some sleepers that we're going to get to in a minute either. Shedeur Sanders is on that list. He's on the list of first-round candidates. He certainly is. Jackson Dart, also on the list of first-round candidates. I wouldn't say Jalen Milroe is. I definitely wouldn't say Tyler Shuck is. I don't think another quarterback is anywhere close. But those two are there. And if at 21, the board shapes out terribly for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they could go quarterback with their first pick. But it is going to take names to not be there. Now, who are those names? Who are the top of the Pittsburgh Steelers draft board as we head into the NFL draft? I'm going to get so much crap for this. But I'm telling you, this is not my assumption. This is reports. I'm reporting things. Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan to a much less extent because they are worried about his character concerns, but he is definitely on the board for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Matthew Golden, Omari and Hampton is very much so big on the Steelers board. I do not anticipate the Steelers drafting a running back in the first round, but I would not by any means rule it out. There are sleepers that may fall. Over the last couple of days, Mason Graham has gone from number 5 pick in the NFL draft to anywhere from 5 to 15, maybe 20, depending on how the board shakes out. I would toss him as a, if by some crazy chance it happens, name above a quarterback, but he is on that board. You have Tatarion McMillan, who is not anticipated to go very high anymore because of the not totally sold that he's 100% into football side of the recruiting process or the scouting process that people have been through over the last couple of weeks with him. The whole, he's a volleyball player and he's fantastic, but he takes plays off and he's totally sold on the game and all that kind of stuff. But he's a name to watch. There are some sleepers that we're going to get in here in a minute, but I would put those guys over Shedeur Sanders where we currently stand. If they're all off the board, if the Pittsburgh Steelers board says Trey Henderson at the top, Darius Alexander at the top, I don't even know who else would be there. Jaden Higgins at the top, Nicky Muware at the top. I think the Steelers would go Shedeur Sanders. But if you put any of those guys that I just tossed out there, Matthew Golden, Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, potentially Walter Nolan, like that's the biggest question mark, I think, in my eyes, is if Walter Nolan is there, which I don't anticipate him being, but if he is there, would the Steelers take him because he's possibly a top 15 talent across the board in the NFL, but there are character concerns, and you just don't know. McMillan, Hampton, if those guys are on the board, along with others, some crazy reason Tyler Warren falls. The Steelers are going to draft Tyler Warren. They're not even going to think about it. If some crazy reason Mason Graham falls, the Steelers are going to draft Mason Graham. They're not even going to think about it. If any of those crazy edge rushers, the Jalen Walker somehow makes his way out of the top 10 and the Steelers have some crazy chance to get something ridiculous, obviously on the board. But it would take that for the Pittsburgh Steelers to sit here and say, we have gotten our quarterback. It is Shedeur Sanders. I think it's a coin flip, but I think it's a coin flip that leads very heavily in the other direction and not Shedeur Sanders in round one. But I have also been told that do not be surprised if Shedeur Sanders falls out of the opening round. That it's not likely. The over-under is 3.5 because a lot of people anticipate Jackson Dart and then teams trading back into the first round. That's not going to be the Steelers. They can't afford to trade back into the first round. They don't have the second round pick to move back into the first round, and you're not going to give up next year's first round pick to go get a quarterback that you just had an opportunity to draft at 21. That's not going to happen. What about sleepers? And this is interesting because of what happened last night. There's obviously the big news all over the place that the Pittsburgh Steelers were unfollowed by George Pickens. And I do not care at all because, to be quite frank, in the NFL these days, if you unfollow somebody in the NFL, it means nothing. Like, it means absolutely, it is a negotiation tactic that we don't even know if it does work, but everybody uses it. That's all it is. It's not, I'm upset about this. This is a big deal. Nothing. I have no idea if George Pickens followed the Pittsburgh Steelers 2 days ago or yesterday or not. And I don't care if somebody says that he did or he didn't. Doesn't make a difference in my eyes. Not even slightly. What I do care about is that the Pittsburgh Steelers have one sleeper on this list that is big and definitely indicates that a move could be coming. That name is Emeka Egbuka. I have heard that Emeka Egbuka is a sleeper to make it into the first round, and the Pittsburgh Steelers love this guy. Love him. They don't love him enough to make him the guy at 21 if everybody else is on the board. But if there are names that have fallen off and the Pittsburgh Steelers sitting there with limited options, I would not rule Emeka Egbuka out as a first-round pick. His character is fantastic. People praise the hell out of this guy and who he is. I was told verbatim, I would let this kid marry my daughter. Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. The Steelers could use a couple of those guys. 100% could use a couple of those guys. Emeka Egbuka has all the talent in the world. You just don't know if it's going to reach the, superstar right off the bat. Is he Malik Neighbors? Does he ever get to that level? Nobody really knows in this draft class. He's very good, very talented. Is he ever going to hit that upper echelon? I think we're going to have to wait and see on that one. But he is a name to watch for the Pittsburgh Steelers 100%. The second one is Omarion Hampton, and I think he sits a little further up the list than Emeka Egbuka. I would not be surprised if the Pittsburgh Steelers love a running back, and if some crazy reason Omarion Hampton slides past the Dallas Cowboys, slides past the Las Vegas Raiders, slides past the Denver Broncos, maybe a team trades up with Denver, moves Denver back. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they like Omarion Hampton. They think he's got a ton of talent. They love Trey Henderson, too. They love Trey Henderson. But they know that he's not a first-round pick. Omarion Hampton might be. And the Steelers are very interested in that. And the third one is Ben Morrison out of Notre Dame. Cornerback. They just sent a boatload of people to his private workout ahead of the NFL draft. Is a guy that probably would be a pretty firm first-round pick, no questions asked, if he didn't deal with an injury in October that shut him down for most of the season. Like he was injured for a good chunk of the year, and he played through the injury, but he's still injured. The Steelers they definitely like Ben Morrison out of Notre Dame, and they'd be open to another corner. They would. They think that on the defensive side of the ball, if they could get this thing figured up and chalked down and everything's good to go, they have set themselves up long-term for a pretty good run in the next couple of years. And if you could get a quarterback next year, a fantastic run over the next couple of years. But that's how they see Ben Morrison, as that guy. Now, Revel Chevelle, I think I got that name wrong, out of East Carolina, is another name to watch, but much lower on that brass than Ben Morrison. I know everybody wants to toss out Nicky Muware. I think he's up there, but to be very honest with you, I think Ben Morrison's ahead of him in the Pittsburgh Steelers' eyes. Now, obviously, if a Barron drops out of Texas, you draft him. If a Will Johnson drops out of Michigan, look for him to be very high on the Steelers' board. If those crazy names, if Matthew Golden's there at 21, which I think Matthew Golden's going to go top 10, but if Matthew Golden's there at 21, watch out, because he is a name to watch for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They want a wide receiver going into this draft. And I get it. Nobody wants to hear it. Everybody wants to tell me it's wrong and it's not how it is, but I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying it's what the Steelers have on their board in UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. This is what is written there: defensive tackle, running back, wide receiver, quarterback, corner. That is their board. And you could agree or disagree, but that is what they're looking at in this draft. And that is the direction they are going to go in the 2025 NFL draft. My first round prediction. It's not a fun one. It's not one people are going to be super happy about. My mock draft came out today. My final product came out today. That's what I call it. And Kenneth Grant was my pick at 21. Now, I'm not done there. Kenneth Grant was my pick at 21. I think the Steelers, if the board shapes out the way they want it to, will not pass up on Kenneth Grant, won't even think about it. But when I submitted that, it was 4:30 in the afternoon, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I guess we were on here 4:30. So 5:30, 6 o'clock yesterday, hit submit, sent it in, was good to go. Since then, I've had conversations. Kenneth Grant might go in the top 12 picks, 13 picks. Derek Harmon might go in the top 13 picks. Walter Nolan might go in the top 15 picks. These guys could be off the board. Talking and trying to figure out where the rest of the NFL is, so I know where the Steelers will be. If Kenneth Grant's there, they're going to take him. That's my firm belief, is if Kenneth Grant's there, they're going to take him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's not. I wouldn't be surprised if Derek Harmon's not. I wouldn't be surprised if Walter Nolan's not. I have two other picks that I think the Steelers would take with the 21st pick in the draft. And I feel, if I had to guess, this is how the board shakes out in their favor. Kenneth Grant is if everything goes right according to plan, the Steelers are going to get Kenneth Grant. That's their guy. Shedeur Sanders is the board does not go the Steelers' way at all. And they are sitting there going, this sucks, but we got to get a quarterback, because that's what their response will be. Mike Tomlin loves Shedeur Sanders. The rest of the Pittsburgh Steelers like who Shedeur Sanders is. They don't like the upside of Shedeur Sanders because it's not that high. They're looking at it going, this dude's fine, but he's no superstar. And he doesn't have superstar upside. He's got middle tier upside. But if Shedeur's there at 21 and the board does not shake out in the Pittsburgh Steelers' favor, he's my second guess for the first pick, or their first pick in the 2025 NFL draft. And then third's a name I just mentioned. I think Emeka Egbuka might end up in Pittsburgh. I really, truly do. I think the Steelers are very serious about potentially trading George Pickens if the right offer comes in. They would never publicly say we're ready to trade George Pickens. And to be honest, I doubt that they're making those calls right now. But those conversations have definitely been had. And those conversations will get much bigger and much brighter and happen way more frequently if the Steelers end up with a wide receiver. And they're not going to not draft a wide receiver because they're worried that they have to keep George Pickens. No, that's not what's going to happen. My third guess is Emeka Egbuka. I think Emeka Egbuka might be sitting there. The Pittsburgh Steelers might be looking at it and going, this dude is a fantastic human being, has upside that we are very interested in, and fits a need that we need right now, and allows us to make a move that may set us up to do something like draft Shedeur Sanders in the second round. Draft Jalen Milroe in the second round. That maybe it sets themselves up to do something like that. And if that happens, if Emeka Egbuka is there at 21 and the Steelers select him, you best believe they're making a boatload of phone calls about getting as close, if not into the first round once again, to get a quarterback. I mean, that's how I see it going down. Again, I think in an ideal world, the perfect quarterbacks here and the Pittsburgh Steelers land their next franchise quarterback because it's very clearly their biggest need. But that's not where we're at. The Steelers have their plans. They have their draft board. They have their big board. They have their players. I've tried to gather as much information as I can over the last couple of months, and this is where we ended up. Those are my 3 predictions. That's the quarterback situation. And that's the sleepers to watch as we head into tonight and the 21st pick in the NFL draft. I'm excited for it. I'm actually super excited for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the 2025 NFL draft because I'm being honest. I don't know how this board's going to shake out. And everything I've heard is that it is all over the place. Nobody has any idea how this thing's going to happen or go down on any team at all. I mean, I spoke to somebody in New England 2 days ago, and they told me they have no idea if it's going to be Will Campbell or Ashton Genty or if they're going to move back. The dude from Missouri has been mentioned in New England the last couple of days. Jacksonville's the same way, and then it just doesn't stop. I think it's going to be nuts. I expect multiple trades. I expect 3 quarterbacks to be taken in the first round of the NFL draft, maybe 2. And I'm going to be really honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if Jackson Dart goes ahead of Shedeur Sanders just from everything that I've heard and people I've spoken to over the last couple of days and really weeks, but really the last couple of days and the last 24 hours has been heavy conversation. That's my draft preview for the Pittsburgh Steelers. 26 minutes of me chatting about stuff that I know bummed you guys out. I know it. But if you're on board with Kenneth Grant, Emeka Egbuka, and potentially Shedeur Sanders, I mean, I hope that I made your day. All right. With that said, start tossing your questions in the chat. Shout out to our super chatters. Shout out to our members. We're going to answer as many questions as I possibly can on the other side of this, but we will be right back. We're going to take a quick break.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes Black and Gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
Shout out. All right. Once again, toss your questions in the chat. Shout out to our super chatters. Shout out to our members. I'm pumped to dive into this stuff. We are going to start with our boy, Chris. Noah, I think Pickens being reported as on the trade block ends his time as a Steeler. What teams and offers do you honestly see us getting for him? Oh, multiple. But it's about what those offers are. Okay, I believe the New England Patriots will make a phone call and say, let's get George Pickens. I think potentially the New York Giants, I think that's lesser, but potentially the New York Giants call and say, let's get a wide receiver. I think the New York Jets could call and say, let's get a wide receiver. I think all of those teams and probably more, the Denver Broncos have been looking for a wide receiver and might go get one. I would imagine the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, all looking at it going, that's a wide receiver. We need a wide receiver. This is how I see this happening as quickly as possible. If the Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock at 21 and Emeka Egbuka is the pick, that means Matthew Golden and Tatarion McMillan are both off the board. And that means teams like the Bills, teams like the Chiefs, teams like the Houston Texans, teams like, I don't know, whoever else, LA, the Chargers, who need wide receivers, are starting to get desperate that they need to make a move. And they didn't get the wide receiver that they were looking for. I think that's the easiest trade up for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I think that's how George Pickens happens, because I think some team somewhere is going to look at it and go, dang it, we needed one and we didn't get one. How do we go about this? Well, George is 24 years old. He's an absolute stud, and he's definitely just getting started. Every team in the world is going to think that they could fix his off-the-field issues, and they're going to call. I would imagine that's how it goes down. What you get for him, potentially a first-round pick if it's one of those teams. I would guess a second-round pick if it's not one of those teams. If it's a team that has already picked, second round. I'm guessing second-round pick for George Pickens is what you would get for him in this draft class. And I'm going to say the percentage of him being traded right now, maybe 55%, just over 50. I'm not saying super high. They're going to have to get a good offer. I think that offer is going to come. I truly do. Chris with another one here. Noah, 2 different NFL front office personnel said that Sanders was the worst interview they ever had, or he was too selfish to consider. No. Yeah, I've heard negative things about Shedeur Sanders, but to be very honest with you, I think the overwhelming words I've heard about Shedeur Sanders is the opposite. That he's a good leader, he isn't very talkative, and is very straightforward about who he is, what comes with him, and everything else surrounding Shedeur Sanders. I mean, he acknowledges it, and I don't think every team wants that, and I think that hides things, like you're going to get teams that aren't looking for the spotlight no matter what, that they want to be quiet. The New Orleans Saints are a team that I would imagine feel that way, where they're sitting there going, we have a quarterback who is very nonchalant. We would like another one, a.k.a. Jackson Dart. But Shedeur Sanders is too big and flashy for us. I think it goes both ways. I think that you'll always have GMs and executives talking smack because they're old school and, they love to talk smack. I think that at the same time, you have to judge what the Pittsburgh Steelers are feeling, but you have to take it with a grain of salt. They love Shedeur Sanders. Guess what? The Steelers know what good character is. Radar is a little off right now because they tend to love guys who have some issues. And I'm not saying Shedeur has any. I've heard good things about Shedeur Sanders, like really good things about Shedeur Sanders. But the Steelers are not the best judgment of character in recent years, really ever. But they tend to like guys that cause a little bit of issues. I don't think Shedeur is going to be that guy. I just am saying that I don't think I'm going to take what their thoughts are as Bible and say, this is it. We're here. If they like them, I like them. I don't think I'm going to do that. So I hear you. I think it goes both ways. I do think it comes with a lot of lights that the Steelers, Shedeur Sanders and Aaron Rodgers in the same room. That's a lot. It's a lot of conversations all the time. And I don't know if the Steelers are ready for that. Shout out our boy, Carl Spackler, gifting a membership on this NFL draft. Appreciate all you guys for real. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. It's a good time. I'm excited to dive into tonight, and I'm excited to answer some questions as we keep it trucking. Shout out Carl Spackler once again. Broderick Wallace passed three picks in the first round. Kenny Pickett, Broderick Jones, and Troy Fautano. Is it time for the first round talent on defense? I think the Steelers think yes. I personally think yes, but nobody wants to hear what I think. I think the Steelers think yes. They're looking at it and saying, we have built the trenches on offense. Let's build the trenches on defense. Let's figure this thing out. I think Ben Morrison is a sleeper just because he's so talented. And if the board shakes out in an odd way and Steelers don't get the guy that they're looking for or the guys that they are looking for, they're not going to have a backup plan. And their backup plan is going to be some of these floaters. But to be more, I think Emeka Egbuka sits higher on the list than Ben Morrison. I do. I don't know where the corners in this class are strange because corners are hard to judge a lot of times. Like you see a lot of corners go in the first round that stink throughout history. Ton. You see a bunch of them that go in the top 10. CJ Henderson was in Pittsburgh last year. That dude was the 11th pick in the draft when he came into the league. He's done little to nothing since he's been in the NFL. You get those guys all the time. So I think teams have a hard time scouting corners and understanding their true upside and potential sometimes. I would imagine that this draft is even more difficult because of that. Defensive tackle, it is the most loaded group in the draft class by far, actually. And I have had people constantly tell me that passing on a defensive tackle is a mistake if you think you're going to get the same guy later, because you're going to get somebody good later, but you are not going to get the next Cam Hayward or the next whatever big, giant, crazy name you want to come up with. Those guys are in this draft class. You want to get them early because defensive tackles do. This is the other part of this, and I've been told it multiple times. Defensive tackles play their entire career in one spot a lot of times, and they're good throughout their entire career. You want one of those guys, and I think the Steelers have an opportunity to do one or to get one, and they're excited for it. Thomas, Noah, here's an idea. If we draft the franchise quarterback this year, we trade some picks in next year to draft up in 2027 for Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams. Jeremiah Smith is a stud. Ryan Williams is also a stud. That would be awesome. I would imagine they go, 2-3, depending on who the quarterback is that goes 1 in that draft class. That would be sick. I think you could do that either way. I think that you could draft your quarterback next year and go get a wide receiver the year after that. But I think that the Steelers want, if the opportunity is there, to draft a wide receiver this year at some point. And if not, they'll find it. I mean, those guys would be awesome. I think Jeremiah Smith is going to turn out to be like one of the next Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors guy. The next, you can't miss on this. You have to go get a Jeremiah Smith. Ryan Williams is going to be that next guy. He's going to be the Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors. What one's better? You got to decide. And I think they're both going to be fantastic. I would be all about it. I think drafting a quarterback next year puts a damper in those plans because you probably have to draft or use a first-round pick the year after to go up and get them. I hear that. I still think it might be worth missing on these guys and maybe eventually making a move for them or hoping they fall. You never know. Maybe they fall. Cody Silva, Noah, how often did teams run on us without Cam Hayward on the field last year, without getting another great defensive tackle? We are going to be in trouble when playing teams with good running backs. Also, what if Cam gets injured? These are all thoughts on the Steelers' mind. All of them. The Steelers, it's been a couple of years since the Steelers' run defense has been consistent across the board all season long, and they are very aware of that situation. And they would like very much so to have a plan in place that fixes their run defense right now and has a plan in place to replace Cam Hayward 2 years from now. That's what they want. They also fully understand that Father Time catches up to every single person in the NFL. There has never been a player in NFL history that has walked out of here at 36, 37, 38 years old, and at one point didn't go, all right, it got me. There it was. Even if it's minor, it gets you. It gets everybody. You want to know how it got Ben? He couldn't move. The guy couldn't tie his shoes. That's how it got Ben Roethlisberger. It happens to everybody. I truly, I'm not going to lie. I think that defensive tackle is significantly higher than any other position on their draft board because they understand that they need to have a solution on the defensive line and with the run game, and they can't mess around with it anymore. And this is the draft class to do it. I'm looking at it going, that's my bet. Kenneth Grant. I would say Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon. I don't know about Walter Nolan. That's the hardest one to judge because the Steelers, the people will tell you that they like him. They'll tell you that they don't like his character concerns, but his talent might outweigh that. And I think they're being truthful with me when they say that if he's there, it's going to be a hard conversation to pass on him, but it's going to be a conversation. But I think it's those 3 names before anybody else on the board, and they would take any 3 of them and they'd feel really, really good about that situation. Miguel, looks like GP is finally out the door. Great news. Time to start bringing quality people and leave the cancers for the other teams. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss nothing. All right, cool. Potentially out the door. You got me a little nervous there. I was like, what had happened? I've been on here for 40 minutes and it's already happened. I thought it was going to happen later. And I don't think it happens today, but if it does happen in this draft, I would imagine overnight or early tomorrow is my prediction. When it comes to George Pickens, the Steelers aren't going to trade him for nothing. That is been evident the entire time. I mean, you could go back to January when we started talking about this, and it was very clear. Like, it was made very clear to me that, and I got that phone call, 15 minutes before I got on this show that day, and just straight up said, like, The Steelers are not going to move on from George Pickens. They never would move on from George Pickens unless the offer is worth moving on from George Pickens. They understand that George Pickens is incredibly talented and a great asset to a football team. That's not going to change. They would love for George Pickens to work out, but they're realistically, they know that it's probably time to move on, that it's not going to work out in their favor long term. And I think everybody would be very mad at them if they went into training camp, didn't get a deal done, didn't have a backup plan in place. George says he's not playing and you got to move on. And then you're sitting there going, how did we get here? This is a way to avoid that. I don't think they're actively making calls where we sit right now. They want to see how the board shakes out. But if the board shakes out and they end up with a wide receiver tonight, or if they believe they're going to get a wide receiver tomorrow, I wouldn't rule it out. I think it's a real possibility, a pretty big possibility. And again, I'm like just sitting over the 50-yard line on if it's going to get done and who it's going to go to, but they understand the situation that they're in and they're trying to avoid it. Jay Vine, would teams really be interested in George Pickens right now? He's lazy, takes plays off, terrible attitude, and is a 50-50 ball wide receiver at this point. I mean, he's 24 years old. He's got some of the best body control / go up and get it ability in the NFL. He's got so much more potential. He's never had a good quarterback throwing him the football. He's had 1 year with a decent offensive coordinator, and that offensive coordinator didn't even have a good year in the city of Pittsburgh. He's barely had anybody on the opposite side of him. There are a lot of reasons for teams to look at the situation and say, we could do so much better for George Pickens and with George Pickens than the Pittsburgh Steelers have done. And they're going to think that. That's how the entire NFL always thinks. Go back to Marquise Brown getting traded in the first round right after A.J. Brown. He gets shipped to Arizona from Baltimore. Arizona's sitting there thinking, Baltimore doesn't have an offense, man. Who's going to throw him the football? Lamar Jackson's a running back. We've got an actual quarterback. We're going to go get a wide receiver that can kill it in our organization, in our offense. Teams are going to think that way. They always think that way. Every team always thinks that they will outdo the other. That is the attitude of the entire NFL. They'll make offers. There will be offers for George Pickens. I don't know if they're going to be as good as the Steelers want them to be, but they're going to be there. Like the Steelers are going to get offers for George Pickens. They're going to get a bunch of them. But it's about, hey, can you get a second-round pick? Can you get a late first-round pick? How late is the second-round pick? Because they're not trading the last pick in the second round for George Pickens. That's not happening. But they will trade the 5th pick in the second round to the Carolina Panthers or something, or I guess the 4th pick to the New England Patriots for George Pickens. And you got to wonder if that's going to happen and how much conversation is going to be had there. You got to remember the New England Patriots are right now a little bit interested in A.J. Brown. Wouldn't be surprised if they're looking for a wide receiver, and maybe, just maybe, the Pittsburgh Steelers are that landing spot. Thomas again, Noah, why does the Steelers fan base want to trade away all of our good players and hate on everyone after a year like George Pickens, TJ, Patrick Queen? If DK has a bad year, yeah, people are already calling for DK's job. And I also think it's hilarious that he went viral on Twitter for looking miserable walking into the facility at 6:45 in the morning. I'm not smiling at 6:45 in the morning. Sorry, guys. I don't care if you put a camera in my face. I don't blame him. And I'm going to tell him that the next time I see him, I'm going to, yo, dog, I don't disagree with you at all, brother. I'd be walking in there, get that thing out of my face, dude. I haven't even had my coffee yet. Get out of here. I think it's just short leash, you know? I don't think you trade TJ Watt. I don't think you should ever consider trading TJ Watt. I think Patrick Queen's got a lot of upside in him. I don't think he's going to be like a top 5 inside linebacker in the NFL, but I think that the inside linebacker position in the NFL is a really bad breed right now. And he's not that expensive. I think you could stick him out and feel comfortable about where you are with that position. George Pickens has some issues. You know, he's got a lot of off the field stuff. He's not really a team player. He's never really been a team player. I think that's an issue. And that, like, the George Pickens one is the only one that makes sense to me. The other ones, I think you got to give it time. The George Pickens one, the way I look at it right now is your chances of him being cordial and saying, yeah, definitely, I'll play on the last year of my deal, no worries about it, you just paid DK Metcalf, are almost zero. And you got to put that into consideration. That's how I view it, is if you're going to trade George Pickens, it's because you do not see a future with the guy and you understand that July is going to get messy. And the Steelers don't pay 2 wide receivers. They just don't. They historically never do. Just think about it. Hines Ward stayed, Plaxico Burress left. Antonio Brown stayed, Mike Wallace and Emmanuel Sanders left. Eventually, they forced Hines Ward out and said, yo, look at dude, we're done. We're done. We can't do this anymore. Went and got Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju gets forced out because of Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson leaves because they're preparing for potentially George Pickens. That doesn't happen. Now it's DK Metcalf. They just don't do it. Historically, that's not their move. Ricky, have you watched Gruden's quarterback class? He is single-handedly raising these guys' stock. Seth Hennigan might be an extreme sleeper. Yeah, first off, I love John Gruden. I love John Gruden breaking down tape. I think he's phenomenal. But I also think that his job is to right now hype these guys up. And I think you have to watch that with that kind of lens on when you're watching Gruden's quarterback classes. There are criticisms that he brings up, lots of them. But it's a lot of like, okay, how do you go about this? How do you make this better? And I think it's great, but unless they put it on the field and are able to do these things and execute these things, it's iffy. What I have been told about the quarterback class is that it is filled with backup quarterbacks, but quality backup quarterbacks. You could go get a bunch of Mason Rudolphs in this class. You can go get a bunch of, Tyrod Taylors in this class, a bunch of Tyrod Taylors, guys that Tyler Heineke's, guys that could come in here and last 10, 15 years in the league as a backup and never do anything on the football field, but be Chad Henne and come in once in a while and suit up if you really need them to. That's what this quarterback class is filled with. That's what I've been told by numerous scouts, is that the talent maxes out around that, or kind of levels off in that third, fourth, fifth round, where everybody is okay. There's not starter expectations. There's a little upside, but you're going to get a guy that's going to be on your roster for a while and can feel pretty good about it. And I think that's what they're looking at it. When it comes to Seth Hennigan, I don't dislike anybody that late in the draft. I think that there are options there. I don't think personally the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking anywhere past the 4th, maybe the 5th round for a quarterback. I think Kyle McCord is like the last of their, we're going to go get this guy. And I think Kyle's probably going to go 5th round, if I had to guess. Chris, Noah, I just watched the NFL Live guys on ESPN clown on the Steelers for handling our quarterbacks since Ben retired. They are right. Fans deserve better. I agree with this. Okay, so this is my thoughts on the Shedeur Sanders situation. Is I am looking at it right now and saying, for everybody who is pushing for Shedeur Sanders, if Mike Tomlin is the guy that makes the Shedeur Sanders call, because the rest of the Steelers organization doesn't want to make the Shedeur Sanders call. Mike Tomlin does. The rest of the organization doesn't. If it's Mike Tomlin's call and it does not work out, the Pittsburgh Steelers have now failed 3 times trying to replace Ben Roethlisberger, and all 3 times can be chalked up to Mike Tomlin. Kenny Pickett didn't work. Wasn't the right pick. This thing keeps happening. Kenny Pickett didn't work. Wasn't the right pick. Justin Fields came in here and had some potential, but Mike Tomlin decided Russell Wilson was the move, and that didn't work. Justin says, screw off. I don't want to stay. I don't want to stay here. You benched me. Okay. You messed up twice. That's 2. Strike 2. Shedeur Sanders comes in here. Doesn't work out. Jackson Dart comes in here. Doesn't work out. That's strike 3. You have now gone 3 times failing at a quarterback for your replacement to Ben Roethlisberger. And at that point, in 31 other teams, you get fired. And I think that's how I view this whole situation, is if Mike Tomlin screws up one more time, there are no excuses left. He can't figure out the quarterback position, and it's on him. And I think that is a risky move to go get Shedeur Sanders and bank on him saving your quarterback legacy as the guy who could find a quarterback after you've screwed up twice and are going on a third. I just got here. Are you going live during the draft? And if we trade TJ, what do you think about putting Herbig on the left side? I'm not going live during the NFL draft. This is my live, but I appreciate everybody who would love me to go live. After this, I'm actually heading down to the Pittsburgh Steelers facility, UPMC Rooney Sports Complex, and I'll be there all night. So the way that the Steelers work with their beat reporters and those who are credentialed media, we'll get there. We'll hang out during the draft. Once a player is picked, we talk immediately to Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin, the player, get all that information for you guys, gather some stories, obviously, but I will be at all of that all night tonight. And then tomorrow morning, I will go live once again. I'm going to try to get some video updates along the way, as many as I possibly can. I don't know what the rules are about doing videos down there or even where they're located. Last year, we were in the offensive line room, and you're pretty far away from anywhere you could actually put yourself on camera. And it was raining. But if it's not, everything's good to go. I'm going to do my best to get on here and get you guys as much content as humanly possible throughout the draft tonight and tomorrow, and obviously Saturday. But we'll be doing live streams as much as possible. That's a guarantee. When it comes to Nick Herbig, I don't think they're going to trade TJ Watt. We'll start there. I don't think they're going to trade TJ Watt. If they do trade TJ Watt, I would put Nick Herbig on the left side, on the left side, and I'd feel pretty okay about it. Like I think Nick Herbig's got potential to be a 3-down outside linebacker. I don't think he's there yet, but I think he's got potential. I'd be okay with that potential. Like I genuinely would. I would be very much so cool with the Steelers saying, let's see what we got in a guy who's proven to us that he's pretty good. And if they feel comfortable in that situation, give him a shot, but they're not going to trade TJ. I think he's got the talent. I don't think he's there yet, but I do think Nick Herbig has the talent to figure it out, in the next 2 years, maybe. I would say Herbig's about a year, maybe 2 years away from being a 3-down linebacker. Stephen Cornfield, who will force DK out, or will he force future wide receivers? Yeah, right now, DK is that guy. But if you draft Emeka Egbuka, you get 4, potentially 5 years before you got to worry about DK Metcalf. That's what the Steelers did. Look at it that way. The Steelers set themselves up for the next time that a wide receiver becomes available, for the next time that they get to draft a wide receiver. If DK's here for 5 years, you could draft a guy in the first round right now. You don't got to worry about paying that dude until DK is done. We do have a trade, and I'll get back to this in a second. The Texans are trading a 2025 5th-round pick and a 2027 5th-round pick to the Browns in exchange for 3 picks, 2 6th-rounders, number 179 and 216, and a 7th-rounder, 255 in the 2025 NFL Draft. That is the dumbest trade before the draft that I've heard of. What are you doing here? What why didn't you make that call on Saturday morning? But I'm not a GM, especially for a team that is picking second in the NFL Draft. I'll just leave it there. But I think the Steelers, to get back to DK Metcalf, are looking at this going, okay, this is our guy for the next X amount of years, which means we got to draft somebody soon. Calvin Austin's not going to cost money. Roman Wilson right now, nobody has any idea what's going on with him. George is your money. You're not going to pay that money. I really, truly don't think you're going to pay that money. Broderick Wallace, with the best question we have, and I apologize, I'm texting back a writer of mine who is asking a very important question. Favorite pre-draft meal and music. So let me tell you guys about my fantastic weekend of food. Let me start here, okay? I got temporary crowns on my teeth today, because on my front 2 teeth, because when I was 12 years old. I fell off my porch and broke one of them, got it fixed, and they just like built it back up. Fell off my porch, did that, got it fixed. A week later, my brother kicks me. We were wrestling, kicks me into a bedpost. I break the other one. Got them both. They just like built two teeth on top of our onto the broken tooth. So I didn't get a crown or anything. Couple of weeks ago, it's the weekend of waiting for Aaron Rodgers, weekend one. One of them decides they're done. I'm just eating a piece of pizza. Boom, breaks right off. So I scheduled to get my crowns on to get it all over with, so I never have to worry about this again today. A week ago, I realized, holy crap, that's the day of the NFL draft. And it obviously is not affecting me. I feel fine. Everything looks good. We're good to go. Here's the thing. The Pittsburgh Steelers feed you the best food possible for 3 days. Fantastic food. Tonight, most likely, I'm talking barbecue that I didn't even know Pittsburgh was able to create. That's how good this barbecue is. Cornbread that I would sleep on as a pillow. That is how soft, but also crunchy it is. Unbelievable. Tomorrow, Chick-fil-A platter. All the Chick-fil-A you want. I'm talking tables full of Chick-fil-A. Unreal. Sunday or Saturday, it's like a free-for-all. It's like, here's just all the food. Eat anything you want. It's fantastic. Can't eat any of it. Nothing. I was told bite-sized pieces of food for the next 2 weeks. Awful. That being said, my pre-draft music and meal is simple, dude. Simple. We get a coffee. We're going to get another one after this. I'm going to put on probably a little bit of Creed, to be real. And then we're going to go on some Gunna because you got to get hyped up. You know what I mean? You get in here, you get real feeling good. Then you're going, all right, we're here. We're the dude. We're about to do this. We get the tingles going. Tingles are going right now as we walk in. And then as I sit there, I cool down. We're good to go. I whip the phone out. We do the walk over. I walk in feeling hella good. And then we head downstairs to eat some of that barbecue. And I'm telling you, I don't care what I got to do. I'm going to eat that barbecue. Great question. Rec 7, sleeper pick, Caleb Rogers from Texas Tech. He can play tackle and guard. I mentioned Seth and McCord back in early March. I've done 60 mocks since then. That is crazy. Kyle McCord is a name to watch. Is definitely a name to watch right now. I think that the Steelers like him as a 4th or 5th round pick, depending. I would say that's where the cutoff is for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is Kyle McCord is the, okay, we didn't get Shedeur, we didn't get this guy, we didn't get this guy. This is our pick. I would guess that's where they're going. Caleb Rogers out of Texas Tech. I like that. Look at the Steelers have offensive line on their list. I don't think it's super high, but they're ready. Like they're very much so okay with adding a wide receiver or an offensive lineman, if the right one presents itself. That's why I constantly toss out the name Gray Zabel, because if the Steelers are sitting there at 21 and Gray Zabel's the best player on the board, they're going to draft him. They're going to feel okay drafting him. But I think it's Cedric Wilson out of Georgia is a name to watch. Caleb Rogers. I think Caleb Rogers is I think he's a guard, but I think he is a quality player. And I think that's what you're going to get in this offensive line class is a lot. I think the offensive line class is a sleeper class where we sit right now. Wouldn't rule him out, to be honest with you. Obviously it depends on how the board shakes out in those day 2, day 3 picks. I don't know exactly where Caleb Rogers is expected to go. I haven't heard his name in the first, so obviously not there. But I would imagine that the Steelers are looking offensive line. I'm guessing it's a guard. Wouldn't be surprised by a swing tackle. Blessed Light, Steelers should do a lottery every year to allow one of y'all to be able to sit in the war room during the draft. That would be sick. That'd be so sick. I'll be honest. I'll be like super honest. I don't think I'd want to be in that war room. I would. I think I'd mess it up. I do. Like, I come on here constantly and I'm constantly saying things that later I'm getting a text about saying, you can't say that. Like, what? You're not allowed to tell people that. And I'm like, well, I had to. My job is to tell you guys things. This is what I want to do. Like, you guys are here. I'm going to tell you what I know. Like, that's my job. I think I'd mess it up, man. I think I'd mess it up, but I think it would be so sick. I'd also have a really hard time staying quiet. Like anybody who'd be in there, they'd be on the board and Tomlin be like, I still want Shador. And I'd be like, all right, man, sounds good. But Ben Morrison's a stud. Just tossing it out there. You know what I mean? I'd be sitting there. I'd be like, Kenneth Grant, stop it. Kenneth Grant's the guy, or I'd be real dumb and I'd make a bet. And I'd be, what at FanDuel right now is Shador Sanders. I think it's like plus 350 or something for the Pittsburgh Steelers to draft him. I'd put my money on that, and then I'd just be inching it. I'd just be like, yo, Shador looks pretty good. Don't forget about Shador Sanders. Don't forget about Shador. I think I'd mess it up. I think it'd be awesome, though. Soapy Nugget, rocking my Mitch Trubisky jersey because I'm ready to be disappointed. That's awesome. Look, I think tonight's going to be great. I think tonight is going to be chaotic. It already started. Like, my phone is like going nuts, and I think it's going to continue to go nuts. There's so much going on. I would expect trades out the wazoo over the next couple of hours. The NFL is ready for chaos. That's my biggest takeaway over the last 24 hours, and really the last week, but the last 24 hours is heated up. Chaos is the theme. It is going to get nuts. It is going to get super crazy. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be involved in some situation or another. I'm not saying they're going to pull it off, but they're going to be making phone calls. They're going to be thinking about these things. Teams are going to be calling up to them. They're going to be calling up to other teams, calling back to other teams. Chaos is going to pursue tonight. That is the theme of the draft. It's been way too quiet heading into tonight, which means that tonight is going to be nuts. That's my best expectation for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right. With that one said, guys, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk, night of the 2025 NFL Draft. I am super pumped for tonight. Like I keep saying, expect craziness. Don't anticipate anything because anything can happen, and it's going to be out there. I'm not 100% sold that Shador Sanders is going to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers by the end of the night, but I do have a feeling that he is on the board, and we'll go from there. Steven's got a last one here, and I'm always pumped. You got more, guys. Toss them in here. Stephen Cornfield, do you know who's announcing the 21st pick? If so, who? Also, who is the person you would love to see announce the future quarterback next year in the Berg? Great question. I don't know who's announcing the 21st pick tonight. I don't think it's anybody. I think it's Roger. I think Roger Goodell's announcing the pick tonight. Lynn Swan, I believe, is the 3rd round pick. Kiesel might be the 2nd. Oh, there is no 2nd round pick. Kiesel might be the 4th. He might be the 1st, but I don't think he's the 1st. I think that's going to be Roger, especially if it's a player that's there at the green room. It'll be Roger Goodell. Who's the person I would love to see announce next year's pick? I think Ben would be awesome. I think that would just be like poetic to say, hey, you're going to replace me. This is awesome. And him be like cool with it. I think that would be sick. I think Troy Polamalu would be awesome. I think Terry Bradshaw would be awesome. I don't know. To be honest with you, I think it'd be cool to see Art Rooney. I know that doesn't happen, but like, how sick would that be to toss Art Rooney up there and to say like, hey, this is my last go at a franchise quarterback. Let's see if we can make it happen. Let's see if we can make that thing real. I think that would be cool. Ben and Terry would be up there, and I think Troy would be up there as well. I think Troy would be a good one. I think he'd do a damn good job announcing a pick. All right. After that one, I am heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to me on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check me out anywhere you get your podcasts. This will be on all of those audio downloads. So please go hit those audio downloads, especially on Apple. Like I said, goal by the end of the year is to be top 10 on those Pittsburgh Steelers or the NFL or whatever it is podcasts come December. It would be awesome. Find all my written work, especially tonight as things get crazy, at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Can't thank you enough. Oh, we got one last one here. Mike Lang. Do we have to sell out on a quarterback? I say build the defensive line, stop the run, get pass rush from the interior. That helps Patrick Queen, helps Minka, helps the corners. Tomlin has won with less. I mean, just to reiterate pretty much everything I've been saying forever, really. is that the Steelers want to do that. Their ideal draft is to figure that out and have that happen, to walk out of here, walk out of tonight, and set themselves up with a strong defensive line to say, we just got a run stuffer. We just got that guy. I think it does wonders. I really, truly do. I think if you could get a Kenneth Grant, a Derek Harmon, a Walter Nolan, you are walking out of tonight with a defense that is filled and you are ready to go. You are ready to set up Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers or Shadar Sanders in the second or whoever up for success to say, look, you don't have all the pressure because our defense is ready to rock. I think it works out so well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that's how they're viewing this. I think that's how they've been viewing this, is that they want a defensive tackle. They understand the importance of it, and they're heading into tonight ready to add one with the 21st pick if it shakes out in their favor. And we'll find out if it does. We will find out if it does. All right, y'all. I'm heading out of here. Thank you guys so much. Keep up with everything at si.com/NFL/Steelers. I'm heading over there in about an hour. So once I get there, I'll have the walkover and everything else. I'll be constantly tweeting. I'll be constantly posting, and hopefully I could get some videos to you guys in the meantime. But I appreciate all you guys for jumping on tonight. It was a blast to talk some NFL draft before the NFL draft. Everybody enjoy it. Go have a great time tonight. Root for whoever you're hoping the Pittsburgh Steelers select at 21. And like I said and continue to say, expect chaos. With that said, as I say every day, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.